Hello and welcome to another recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Makoto Urabe, a strange new transfer student, is immediately branded as weird due to her peculiar sleeping habits and an odd burst of laughter in class. At the end of the school day, when Akira Tsubaki wakes up Urabe, he finds her face alluring and ends up tasting some of her drool. Tsubaki suddenly develops a fever after having a dream about Urabe that he can't seem to get out of his head. Urabe visits Tsubaki's home and treats his fever by giving him more of her drool. She explains that this cures his symptoms, which were brought on by withdrawal from not receiving any more drool. As a result, Urabe starts visiting Tsubaki daily to give him more of her drool. After a few days, Tsubaki decides to confess to Urabe as he begins to fall in love with her. Tsubaki shows his love by tearing up a picture of his middle school crush when Urabe asks him to declare it in a way that only he can. Urabe agrees to be his girlfriend after explaining that the reason she laughed in class was because she heard a voice telling her Tsubaki would be the first person she would have sex with. Tsubaki decides to ask his friend, Kohei Ueno, what he could do to advance his relationship with Urabe, though none of his advice seemed to work on Urabe. When asked if they really are in a relationship or not, Urabe takes Tsubaki to an abandoned house. She tells Tsubaki to close his eyes and then she undresses, and then feeds Tsubaki her drool, explaining that their drool is a special bond that allows them to know what they are feeling. The next day, after Tsubaki has a strange dream involving Urabe, Urabe drinks some of Tsubaki's drool and somehow manages to recall his dream in great detail. Tsubaki spots Kohei kissing Ayuko Oka, who Kohei explains is his girlfriend, whom he's been secretly dating for a while. When Tsubaki expresses his desire to kiss Urabe, she gives him a test tube of her drool, telling him to drink it before he goes to bed. That night he has a dream where he is accidentally kissed by Urabe, feeling disappointed that she is not putting her feelings into it. The next day, Tsubaki comes to realize they should only kiss when they come to understand each other's feelings. Later at school, another boy in Tsubaki's class, Ogata, confesses to Urabe, asking her to go out with him. Urabe decides to give him a reply the next day, forbidding Tsubaki to interfere. The next day, she feeds Ogata some of her drool and, upon hearing he does not feel any different, rejects him. After doing the same with Tsubaki, which makes his nose bleed, because she was not wearing underwear that day, Urabe explains how his reaction to her drool is proof that he is the only one she shares this bond with, and they walk home together holding hands. To everyone's surprise, Ayuko chooses to eat her lunch right next to Urabe. The following day during PE, Urabe gets a scrape, so Ayuko takes her to the nurse's office to get it fixed. Ayuko discovers she suddenly has the same injury as Urabe after sharing a drink with her. They quickly determine that Urabe's drool can transmit wounds as well, demonstrating that Ayuko and Tsubaki share a connection with Urabe. Ayuko talks about how Urabe fascinated her after she saw her with Tsubaki, but Makoto declines her invitation to be friends. The following day, Ayuko gives some of her drool to Urabe, inferring from Urabe's response to its sweet flavor that Tsubaki hasn't yet been kissed. After that, Urabe and Ayuko start eating lunch together every day. Tsubaki tastes her sweat and sees Urabe in a swimsuit after missing her in a swimsuit during swim class. Tsubaki works up the courage to ask Urabe out on a date to the beach as summer vacation approaches, and the two continue their custom of exchanging drool. After a week, Tsubaki and a sun-kissed Urabe go to the beach to eat yakisoba and go swimming. Tsubaki experiences a nosebleed after spotting a tan line from Makoto's pair of scissors, and Urabe later experiences the same when she tries Tsubaki's drool on the way home. Tsubaki is approached by Ayuko while clothing shopping, and she tells him about using first names with her boyfriend Kohei. An abbreviated drool swap with Tsubaki leads Ayuko to conclude that Urabe and Tsubaki do not address one another by their first names. She then approaches Urabe in a similar manner and briefly discusses first names with her before Urabe withdraws. Tsubaki takes advantage of a sleeping Urabe in the park by calling her first name, Makoto, to her. When they are on their way to school, Tsubaki suddenly declares that he wants a picture of Urabe after having yet another bizarre dream. Later, as Tsubaki waits for Urabe at a bridge, his former flame Aika Hayakawa extends an invitation to a coffee date. Tsubaki discovers Urabe hiding at one of the bridge ends and explains that she didn't want to interrupt the conversation, after he declines the invitation. Urabe and Tsubaki discuss Tsubaki's crush as they make their way back. After exchanging drool, the two are able to understand one another's emotions before Tsubaki pulls out the camera once more to attempt to capture Urabe, who agrees to have her tongue protruding for the photograph. Urabe is asked to compete in a relay race for the sports festival after putting on an impressive performance on the track, but she declines the offer because it would prevent her from walking home with Tsubaki. Tsubaki gets a cold as the students change into their winter attire. Urabe disguises her bikini under her coat after hearing Ayuko describe how she dressed up to help Kohei recover from a cold, by giving him some of her drool. This aids in Tsubaki's recovery. Urabe succeeds in helping her team win the relay race on the day of the sporting event. Urabe once more rejects Tsubaki's suggestion that she join the track team because she much prefers to spend time with Akira. Tsubaki vividly recalls squeezing Urabe's breast in his dream and is unable to shake the memory. He decides to take a stroll and decides to follow Urabe's usual route after school. As he does so, he passes an apartment complex that turns out to be Urabe's home. Tsubaki is invited by Urabe to her apartment for a drink, where his imagination begins to run amok. Tsubaki nearly reaches for Makoto's breast after catching her as she trips after being startled by some lightning, but Urabe stops him. She asks Tsubaki about his dream and then feeds him some drool while grabbing her own breast to make him feel the sensation more strongly. When she gives Tsubaki the chance to touch her ears for himself, he gets more hostile and teases her until he notices Urabe is crying and walks away. The following day, after Urabe receives guidance from Ayuko regarding the novel feelings she is having, Tsubaki requests that Urabe slap him as an act of repentance. Urabe then describes the sensation she feels when her ear is touched before assuming Tsubaki's bruise. Urabe's bad case of bedhead is noticed by Ayuko, who gives her a makeover with a new hairdo. Tsubaki feels a little envious of Urabe because she receives so much attention for her new hairstyle. As they depart for their destination, Tsubaki persuades Urabe to don her previous hairdo and messes up her hair at her request. The feeling of having her hair messed up is demonstrated to her by Urabe the following day as Ayuko calls her out on it, and she learns to enjoy it. In the meantime, Tsubaki discovers an idol named Momoko Imai who bears a striking resemblance to Urabe as he becomes irate when one of the male students begins selling pictures of Urabe's alternate hairstyle. Soon after, Tsubaki buys Momoko's photo book on a whim and enjoys looking through it. Urabe demands Tsubaki bring the book to her as soon as she learns about it from Ayuko, who had learned about it from Kohei, and then she rips it to pieces with her scissors, telling Tsubaki that he does not need to worship an idol that resembles her. When Akira lies about not having a girlfriend, Tsubaki runs into Aika, who has just had her boyfriend dumped. Aika reveals how she learned of Akira's feelings for her. Tsubaki is given the chance to try some of Aika's drool, but he declines when he realizes it might hurt his relationship with Urabe and reveal that he does have a girlfriend. The following day, Aika makes the choice to approach Urabe and invite her to her school's Sunday cultural festival, along with the possibility that Tsubaki will be there. Later that evening, Aika calls Tsubaki while pretending to have a facial wound, tricking him into attending the festival with her and posing as her boyfriend. Tsubaki makes an attempt to make up an excuse in front of Urabe, but she quickly discovers the truth from Ayuko. Aika shows up at the festival on Sunday while Tsubaki is wearing her previous middle school uniform. Ayuko decides to follow Tsubaki and Aika as they enter the festival with Kohei after spotting them earlier. Urabe, who appears in a box robot, suggests they conduct a blind taste test of each of their drool to determine which Tsubaki prefers as Tsubaki struggles to fend off Aika's advances. As Urabe was naked inside her costume, Akira immediately develops a nosebleed from her drool. Aika strips off and tries to drool on Tsubaki, but she stops when she begins to sob, making it clear that her advances on Tsubaki were just an act to cope with the loss of her boyfriend, who had feelings for someone else even while they were dating. Aika's drool is tried by Urabe, who senses that she has long experienced unrequited love but assures her that she will eventually find the right person. Tsubaki's blindfold is suddenly shook off, revealing the girls' bare bodies, leading to slaps from both of them. She tells him that her upcoming kiss with him will be her first as Tsubaki and Urabe depart together, which causes a smile when she mimics his drool. After seeing her naked, Tsubaki is a little shy around Urabe, so she asks to try his drool to see how agitated he is. Urabe is shocked to discover that she slightly cut Tsubaki's forehead when she used her scissors against him the following day, for trying to hug her. Urabe notices that her scissors are less accurate as she brings Tsubaki to her house to have his injury treated. She attributes this to a strange dream she had after licking some of Tsubaki's drool. As Urabe continues to make Tsubaki drool, he begins to imagine Urabe naked and eventually starts banging his head while resisting the urge to give Urabe an impulsive hug. Urabe decides to hug Tsubaki on her own initiative after hearing his justification, which helps her regain her scissor technique. Tsubaki decides to keep the gauze Urabe gave him even though one of his classmates, Ryuko Sawano Raiko, offers to change it the following day. Later on that day, Urabe starts a hug again. Urabe runs into Tsubaki's sister, Yuko, while out shopping, and the two go to a coffee shop where Urabe talks about her past crushes and inquires about having a boyfriend. She says that she has no time for romances because she has to fulfill a promise to her late mother to care for Tsubaki until he completes his studies. Urabe later requests that Tsubaki visit his mother's grave the following Sunday to pay their respects. When Urabe and Tsubaki first meet, he is shocked to see her so formally attired. Urabe wants to feel Tsubaki's memories of his mother after they have paid their respects and spoken about her, so they decide to simultaneously exchange drool as Urabe touches the gravestone. Both Urabe and Tsubaki end up crying, and as they continue to talk and laugh as they leave, they feel like their bond has grown. And that's all for now. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to support the channel.